In this video, I'm going to be talking about why Google buying HubSpot for 40 plus billion makes no sense, but also why it kind of does. You may have seen the recent article around potential talks of Alphabet, Google's parent company, buying the CRM system HubSpot. Now, this story is super interesting to me as we manage millions of pounds in Google ads each year and over 50% of our client base uses HubSpot. So my first impression was, well, this is pretty cool. But then I started thinking about what it actually means from a brand and agency perspective, and I don't think it would really change anything in especially the short term. But what do I mean by this? First off, the area where it's most interesting isn't that interesting. There's already a native integration where you can sync HubSpot with Google Ads, and it pulls through all the GSLID and UTM data straight into the CRM. There was also an update last year which showed that Google is starting to make re-uploading of HubSpot data for offline conversion values more native for HubSpot and other CRM systems. I mean, previously that functionality was only available natively for Salesforce, so they were making this native anyway. Now, I would like to hope that HubSpot, if acquired by Alphabet, wouldn't remove other native integrations with the likes of Microsoft products, so for example, LinkedIn ads, but I doubt they would do that, right? So from an integration standpoint, this merger wouldn't set the world on fire, and that was the bit that I initially started thinking that I'd get excited about. But in saying that, there are three areas which could potentially come quite interesting. And the first one is around privacy updates and conversion tracking. Now, you've probably heard that third-party cookies are going away. And Google has been battling with this and introducing the likes of Google's Privacy Sandbox, GA4, and enhanced conversions to give brands better conversion visibility. Now, HubSpot has over 200,000 customers. Imagine if you're able to use this data to increase targeting accuracy across Google's media placements, for example, YouTube, or at the very least, able to use this data to enhance your conversion tracking capabilities. Now, that would be really, really interesting and really definitely worth a conversation around the merger. Also, as mentioned, HubSpot have the sync with other platforms too. It's going to give massive insight into cross-channel attribution. They could also give Google's AI access to the whole of HubSpot's data, which they could go through, and we could actually say that all of these inbound inquiries who have left comments and these deal conversations associate with these sort of keywords and these sort of profiles. So it may actually give Google a really good understanding of the intent behind certain queries and further understanding of personas behind people looking to buy, which could make, the algorithm much better from a Google perspective. Now, I have no idea about the capabilities or the legalities behind using this data in this way, but I assume if you're going to buy one of the world's largest CRM systems, they're probably going to be buying it for it to play a role in their current biggest issue, which is third-party cookies, and looking to increase visibility of conversions and allowing more accurate targeting of the data behind the scenes. Okay, it's not necessarily their biggest issue because their joint biggest issue is probably AI, but I'll get onto that in a second. We also have to remember that HubSpot recently acquired Clearbit, which is a large customer intelligence platform which massively adds to the value of the enrichment data and the data available to them at their fingertips if they were looking to use the HubSpot acquisition in this way, which again kind of makes sense and plays into this narrative. The second point I want to get onto is Google looking to increase people's and marketers' budget allocation within the platform. On the All In podcast, they spoke about Google's acquisition ages ago of Urchin, which was ultimately the introduction of UTMs, and how the actual acquisition of that massively increased ad spend, especially in the short term right after the purchase. This was primarily due to the increased ability to attribute conversions to Google Ads, which makes sense because it's really simple. If you can increase your ability to associate conversions with ad spend through a platform, then marketers are going to spend more. And ultimately, this is Google's primary business model. So if they're buying HubSpot in a way to enrich their data, which therefore will allow them to associate conversions at a better and more accurate rate, then they're going to do it because any elevation in their actual business model, even 5-10%, is going to be absolutely ginormous from a revenue perspective. So if they are doing that, it's a really cool strategy, I think, for them. Finally, we're talking about AI defense from them. And this was another good point in the All In podcast. And it's really indicative of how much AI could be taking Google's search traffic and eating their lunch, as it were. Are they doing this to keep shareholders happy with the loss of revenue potentially coming from the likes of AI? But for 40 billion, they mentioned that you could buy probably most of the AI competition, such as likes of Perplexity, for example. So I'm not exactly sure how buying one of the biggest CRM systems will have an impact on protecting against AI and competition, but I'm excited to kind of see how much that plays out. The long and short of this is, in the short term, if this merger came through, there's not going to be any difference to the day-to-day if you're using Google Ads, HubSpot, or even if you're using the likes of Salesforce, for example. I think it's going to very much stay the same. And if this deal does end up going through, then I think what's going to happen is they're going to use all this data and increase their first-party data reach behind the scenes with HubSpot's customers and the likes of Clearbit enrichment and intelligence behind the scenes. And they're going to use that to try and increase their ability to, one, target through Alphabet's different media placements, or actually make it more accurate targeting so you can get in front of your customer, which hopefully should therefore increase retargeting and net new conversions. But they're also going to use it to try and increase their enhanced conversion tracking even further to make sure they can start associating any conversion they possibly can back to Google Ads, which they can track, because that's the only way they're going to be able to increase their revenue on the top line in a very short term. And also it's kind of combating one of the biggest issues, which is the privacy and third-party cookies going away at the moment, which again, Google's going to be battling for years. So my guess is that's the play. I'm very interested to see if this actually goes through or if it's just sort of speculation and talk. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Whack any thoughts in the comments, and speak to you very soon.